I want to work at the Krusty Krab. Now, that's something 10-year-old me would say. Or is it? How many of us saw characters like Carly from iCarly and said that they wanted to be a vlogger or an internet star? How many of us saw wrestling personalities like John Cena and said that they wanted to be a wrestler? Or maybe you're like me and you also want to work at the Krusty Krab. But in all seriousness though, how many of us have seen different characters on TV or even different professions when we were younger and said, I want to grow up to be like blank? And as kids, it was easy for us to choose careers, right? We saw something that we liked on TV or we read in a book and we would run up to our parents and go like, hey mom, hey dad, can I work at the Krusty Krab? And they would just laugh it off and support us for making such a life-changing decision so early on in our lives. But obviously, that trouble-free mindset that we have as kids changes when we grow older. Because life hits us hard. And it hits us fast. Because 1 second, you're worrying about the homework you missed. And then the next, you're worrying about the top 3 college courses that you want to put in your college application forms. And sure, for others, you might have it somewhat figured out on what you want. But even then, a lot of questions start forming in your mind. What if I'm not good enough for this course? You ask yourself, do I really see myself doing this for the next 20 years? And on again, our mind has a vigorous back and forth with itself, deciding on whether that this is something that you really want to do. Is it meant for you? How do we even know? And how do we get out of that gutter of indecisiveness? And with all of this indecisiveness comes waves and waves of self-doubt. And that was me 4 years ago. And to be frank, it sometimes still is now. Now, I'm a third-year political economy student, and most people would assume that I have a good amount of my life figured out. I write my papers, I have good grades, I'm active in the college org scene, and the like. And I guess if you do look at it that way, then I can confidently say that I have a good amount of my life figured out. But let me tell you something that I've been wrestling with for a very long time now. I'm terrified. And I know I'm not the only one. Because common ramblings among college students go like, yeah, I only took this course because it sounded cool. Or, yeah, I'm only here because my parents want me to. And a lot of statements similar to these. In fact, there are a lot of times that I find myself staring at all of my academic papers. And I really do think, what am I even doing here? And these feelings of self-doubt and creeping uncertainties do not do me a favor, especially when I'm trying to make sense to my papers. Because instead of worrying about government policies, political dynasties, or different socio-cultural issues, I instead spend the next hour rethinking and reevaluating my life choices again and again and again. And okay, I'm not saying I'm undecided in my course. I love what I'm studying. It just goes back to that question earlier of being in that gutter of indecisiveness. And how is it that time and time again, I find myself wanting to rip my papers in half, slam my laptop screen, or really just have a sudden career change because I think to myself that I don't want this anymore. It was my second year in college and online classes had just started and a lot of the stress was getting to me. I couldn't keep up with the readings and I just felt flat out tired and exhausted. So I was seriously considering a career change. I thought to myself, you know what sounds like a good idea? Maybe I should become a PT. And no, not a physical therapist, but a professional tambay. And we may laugh at it right now, and I laugh at it a lot actually, but it was a very serious situation. I was seriously considering taking a gap year. And I entered college feeling pretty fired up, but here I was getting burnt out. And honestly, it's during times when we get burnt out that we really start to become unsure with what we want. But that's okay. It's totally natural for that to happen. Yet, how did I find myself from being this indecisive high schooler to finding out what I wanted to take for college and then really pushing myself for the past 3 years to continue doing what I started? Well, there is a key 3-step process which I always look towards to when I face indecisiveness and burnouts. Now, the first step revolves around talking about the hard things. And the most difficult part about getting out of that gutter is acknowledging you're in there in the first place. Be it talking to a colleague, friend, mentor, your parents, just being able to put out your feelings help us feel more acknowledged and confident in what we feel and what we want to do. Because when I was going through my burnout in my second year, I had one of the most unhealthy coping mechanisms to it. And instead about talking about the stress that I was going through, I continued drowning myself in school and organizational work. And do you know why people say to never bite off more than we can chew? At least in the figurative sense. It's because there's only so much that we can process. Now imagine you haven't finished chewing what you just ate, but here you are, stuffing yourself with more food, and you're stressing over your personal life, and you haven't completely processed that yet. And then schoolwork comes bombarding in. And this is why it's great to always share our food. Share our burdens. Because when we're having a hard time finishing our meals, we have people who we can turn to that can help us process everything. People who can help us finish our food. And that way, our stomachs and mouths aren't too full and we aren't too overwhelmed with the difficult journeys in life. The second step is to challenge your thoughts. Because when you're done with acknowledging how you feel and what you want to do, your thoughts become so much clearer. And with clarity, it's time to start weighing the pros and cons with the decisions that you want to make, while also staying in tune with what you really want. So how do we challenge our thoughts in ways that bring us closer to making sound decisions? Well, you need to ask yourself 2 key questions. Will this bring me the happiness that I need? And will this bring good to the people around me? Now, to answer the first question, when we think about the happiness that we need, it's all about making that active choice to do what is good for us, even if that's something extremely difficult. Because people often think that choosing happiness is what's fun, relaxing, and convenient. But no, it's also really understanding what you need to do for your growth as an individual and in all of the relationships you find yourself in. Be it becoming a better son or daughter, a better sibling, or a better student, happiness should always involve the long term. And you shouldn't be making all these decisions based solely on instant gratification. Now to answer the second question, will my decisions bring good to the people around me? Well, obviously, we should seek to be compassionate and considerate in everything that we do. But there is a catch. And the reason why I prefer this to be the last question that you ask yourself is because while we want to make decisions that benefit other people, it's important to do those things while already taking into account our personal well-being in this whole process. Because if we're making decisions that don't take into consideration our own happiness, then trust me, you will feel so much resentment, not just towards yourself, but to everybody around you. And I firmly believe that you cannot fully give compassion and understanding to others if you can't give that to yourself. And now the third and final step is owning up to your decision. And obviously, this whole decision-making process and choosing who we want to be and what we want to be isn't perfect. It's not as if you follow all of these steps and you instantly know what you want for yourself. Because if it was that easy, I would have just left you with the last 2 key steps. But no, it's a growing process which we hone and is still vulnerable to a lot of mistakes. So owning up to your decision isn't just saying, okay, I decided to do this, so I'm going to see this through all the way. It's also saying that I made the wrong decision, so I need to turn back and recalibrate my thoughts, no matter how big or small that decision may be. And that's when you go back to the first step, the second, and then the third. It's this whole cycle of striking balance between perseverance and also knowing when enough is enough. And admittedly, it's a very, very complicated line to tread on, but life has this one big safety net. It's that the beauty in all of this decision-making and realizing what we want is even if we do make the wrong decisions, even if we do burn out, I am telling you right here and right now, it's totally okay to not have everything figured out. And that's why the whole 3 key step process is a cycle in itself. And as a third-year college student, I can totally attest to that. Now, looking back into my journey from when I decided to take up what I want to where I am now, I was unnecessarily panicking a lot. But who you are at 16 isn't gonna be who you are when you're 21. And for sure, it's not who you are at ages 30 and 40. And as Conan O'Brien beautifully put it, one's dream is constantly evolving, rising and falling, changing course. And that's why we need to see our whole life plan as this continuous cycle and journey of decision making, with you as the main driver. But what's the point of having a great car, a great life, if you don't open up your doors to other people? So be vulnerable in your decision making. Open up your greatest and deepest insecurities to the people around you, the people who genuinely care about you. Because vulnerability allows us to rebuild and rethink. And I think back to all of those times how I was unconsciously choking myself on too much food, too many burdens, to really realize that I wasn't getting anywhere with that mindset. I wasn't making sound decisions. But by breaking down those walls and opening up my doors, I have found so much inner strength and peace in choosing who I want to be. And honestly, I'm only 21 years old, so it's still too early for me to say if a lot of my decisions in life were the right ones. But based on the progress so far, the progress that I've been making, progress which you can also make, I can say that I'm completely on the right track to working in the Krusty Krab. Thank you.